Every generation faces giants. They may not wield spears or wear ancient armor, but they roar just as loud. Their names are fear, doubt, insecurity, and hopelessness. They cast long shadows over our lives, whispering that we are too small, too weak, too insignificant to stand against them. But long ago, on a dusty battlefield, a young shepherd boy showed the world that courage isn't found in physical strength or worldly power. It's found in a faith that dares to look up. When fear stands tall, faith must rise taller. In the valley of Elah, two armies stood locked in a stalemate. On one side, the Philistines, confident and imposing. On the other, the army of Israel, paralyzed by fear. For 40 days, a shadow had fallen over them, a shadow nearly 9 feet tall. His name was Goliath. Clad in bronze from head to toe, he was a walking fortress, a seemingly invincible force of nature. Twice a day, at sunrise and sunset, his voice would thunder across the valley, a venomous challenge laced with mockery. He taunted their God, their king, and their courage. Yet, for 40 agonizing days, not one man dared to answer. The greatest army in the land, including their tall king, Saul, was held captive, not by chains, but by a single voice of intimidation. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the loudest enemy we face is the one inside our own heads, whispering, "You can't, you're not enough. Don't even try." Then a new sound entered the camp. Not the clang of armor or the war cry of a champion, but the simple footsteps of a boy named David. He wasn't a soldier. He was a shepherd, sent by his father to deliver bread and cheese to his older brothers on the front lines. He arrived not seeking glory, but fulfilling a duty. But when he heard the giant's blasphemous taunts, something ignited within him. A holy fire. He turned to the soldiers, men hardened by battle but now softened by fear, and asked a question that cut through the tension. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? His own brothers, embarrassed and annoyed, scolded him. "Why have you come down here? Go back to your sheep." To them, he was just an arrogant kid. But what they saw as arrogance was actually audacity born from unwavering belief. Faith is often misunderstood by those who are ruled by fear, because courage born of belief sees what fear simply cannot: a God who is bigger than any giant. David's conviction was so powerful that word reached King Saul. When brought before the king, the young shepherd didn't waver. "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine," he declared. "Your servant will go and fight him." Saul, looking at this boy, who had never worn armor or wielded a sword, saw only his youth. He offered David his own armor, the king's finest protection. But when David tried it on, it was heavy, cumbersome, and foreign. It wasn't his. With quiet confidence, David took it off. He wasn't rejecting the king's help. He was rejecting a human solution for a divine problem. Instead, he reached for what he knew: his staff, his shepherd's bag, and his sling. He walked to a nearby stream and chose 5 smooth stones, not one for each of Goliath's brothers, as legend sometimes suggests, but simply enough to be prepared. Then, with nothing but a stick and a sling, he walked down into the valley to face the impossible. Goliath saw him coming and burst into laughter, his voice dripping with disdain. "Am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks?" But David's reply was not a warrior's boast. It was a believer's declaration. "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." At that moment, David began to run, not away from the giant, but toward him. The scene freezes in our minds. The boy, the sling, the stone whistling through the air. A moment of absolute silence before impact. Then, the impossible happens. The stone sinks into the giant's forehead, and the man who had terrorized a nation for 40 days crumbles to the ground. Faith doesn't calculate odds. It takes aim at impossibility. The silence was shattered by a roar, not from a giant, but from the army of Israel. The sight of their fallen enemy broke the spell of fear. They surged forward, routing the fleeing Philistines. David, the shepherd boy, stood over the fallen giant. He took Goliath's own massive sword, the very symbol of his terrifying power, and ended the threat for good. The boy who had arrived carrying bread for his brothers now left carrying a nation's hope. As the sun set, its warm light didn't just fall on a victor. It fell on a testament to the power of faith. The entire battle wasn't just about a boy and a giant. It was about showing a nation, and all of us, where true strength really comes from. So what does this ancient story say to us today? First, our giants aren't always people. Your Goliath might be a diagnosis, a mountain of debt, a crippling addiction, a deep-seated fear of failure, or the constant, nagging voice of comparison. These giants seem just as invincible as Goliath did. But this story screams a timeless truth. Giants fall when faith steps forward. No matter how big the shadow it casts, your giant is not bigger than your God. Second, faith doesn't need someone else's armor. Saul's armor represented the world's way of doing things, relying on human strength, status, and conventional wisdom. It was a perfect fit for Saul, but it was a death trap for David. David's sling and stone, however, represented his personal, practiced, intimate faith. It was what God had placed in his hand. God often uses what's already in your hand, your unique skills, your personal story, your simple trust, to defeat what seems far beyond your reach. Don't try to fight your battles with someone else's weapons. Use the faith you have. Third, you don't have to wait until you feel ready. David wasn't a trained warrior. He was a worshipper who trusted God in the lonely fields with his sheep. He had faced lions and bears, not in a stadium, but in the quiet defense of his flock. His courage wasn't a sudden burst of adrenaline. It was a practiced obedience. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is taking the next step of obedience in the face of fear. If you wait until you're no longer afraid, you will wait forever. And finally, when you win, give the glory back. David's victory was not an opportunity for self-promotion. His first words weren't "look at what I did," but a declaration that the battle belonged to the Lord. His entire purpose was to show the world that there is a God in Israel. This is the mark of true courage. It doesn't point inward, seeking applause for itself. It always points upward, giving testimony to a power greater than our own. Our victories are not meant to build our own pedestals, but to build a platform for God's glory. Sometimes, God doesn't remove the giants from your life. He uses them to reveal the strength He has placed within you. He allows the shadow to fall so you can discover the light you carry. Remember David's words, a promise that echoes through millennia. The battle is not yours, it's His. The same God who guided a stone from a shepherd's sling is the same God who walks with you into the valley of your fears. Trust Him, take aim, and watch your giants fall. Thank you for joining us today. If this story spoke to you, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories of faith that still speak today. Until next time, find your smooth stones and face your valley with courage.